Yes, hi everyone. I'm so excited to be here and share some of my insights and experiences working at MIT. And you'll hear a lot from me during this session, so I'll pass the mic for now.
Sounds good. Our webinar tonight aims to cover the latest STEM admissions data, application process, academic strategies for CS majors, key tips for STEM students, and the role of AI in enhancing college applications. We'll also discuss planning and strategizing in computer technology and AI, along with computation ideas for STEM students. If this is your first time joining an Ingenious Prep event, welcome. We're here to support you and your students on this college admissions journey. Ingenious Prep has a team of over 200 former admission officers from top schools all over the country. They have successfully guided numerous students to their dream colleges by helping them stand out in their applications. Along with our graduate coaches, who are the graduates from the top universities, which means they know exactly what it takes to become a student there because they have done it themselves. We also give our students access to over 200 professors, researchers, and scholars through our programs like mentorship program or leadership and innovation lab. Students can have hands-on experiences on the topics of their field of interest. Without further ado, let's welcome DJ to get us through admission insights for STEM students. DJ, the floor is yours.
Awesome. Hi, everyone. So excited to be here tonight. And let's just dive right into the content. So up first, we're going to talk a little bit about how admissions data is processed for STEM applicants. And I'm going to start with a little trivia. In the chat, can you feel free to jot down what percentage of college applicants apply as prospective STEM majors? So you see the different percentages, 20.7, 26. Just feel free to drop into the chat what you think the answer is. And those of you that guess D guess correct, 39.2%. It's over a third of college applications indicate an interest in STEM. And so since there are thousands and tens of thousands of students pursuing the field, the STEM applicant pool is super competitive. It's one of the most competitive in the admissions process. The takeaway of this data point is that STEM fields are super popular and competitive. And so in order to get admitted as a STEM student, you really have to stand out in a really competitive pool. So let's take a step to look at how applications are processed. So when you submit your application, a lot of times students panic, and students I've worked with, like if it's due November 1, they assume everything must be evaluated on November 1 and it must be all done in one day. And that's a really hard job. So what happens is for the first few weeks after your applications are submitted, admissions officers will go home and they will probably work from home without going into the office for a few weeks to just read through all of their applications. And each admissions officer, if we look at this second part here, has a specific pile of applications that they are going to read, right? So for simple numbers, let's say there were 10 applications. There were 3 admissions officers. Each of those admissions officers would read their pile of 3 applications, right? Although we know the data is much larger. These applications are then separated by region for an admissions officer to read and then review that specific pile. So often what you may hear in these types of conversations is what's most important is not what someone on the other side of the world is doing, right? What's most important is that within your context, you stand out in that regional pile that the admissions office is going to be reviewing your application in, right? Each one gets a pile, they pick their favorites from that pile, and then you see this last step, they'll meet as a committee and debate which students should be admitted from their respective piles. So a high-level overview of the process. I think a couple takeaways from that are 1, your application will be about 13 pages in total, and it's going to be in a stack of applications as tall as a 20-story building. You're compared to other applicants from your region. That is who your competition is, and it is key to make an impression on the admissions officer who is assigned to your file, so that admissions officer will advocate for you in the committee. That's ultimately the person that you want on your side. So let's take a step back. And now that we understand a little bit about how the process works, let's understand why the process is so important and what colleges and career paths may look like for potential computer science or math majors. So there are different jobs, right? Job types. Computer science is sometimes called the sexiest job of the 21st century. That it may include things like software development engineer in the front end, back end, full stack infrastructure, bunch of places. Data analytics or data science, software development manager, and finance. You can be a trader, a quant researcher, a quantitative research, or an algo engineer. And the average salary for a software engineer is $117,871 per year in the United States, and typically a $5,000 cash bonus. And this is from Indeed.com. What you'll see generally more than I think these specific numbers is that these jobs tend to be pretty high paying. They tend to be pretty well resourced, right? You're working often in startups and high established businesses, and they come with a lot of perks in that sense. Data science is a field with a really high demand, and it's continuing to grow, I think, as we understand just how important data is in our day-to-day life. The US Bureau of Labor Statistics estimates that from 2021 to 2031, the 10-year period that we're in, the rates for these types of jobs will grow by 36%, which is a pretty large percentage. And data science works across all sectors. So you can be a data scientist working in, I know some people who do it within education spaces, and they use data to help students in schools. You can use data science in sports. You can use data science in finance and business. You can use it in sociology and understanding how people work. You can use it in politics and elections. There's just so many places that you can apply data science, and also really apply it to that cutting edge technology as well. And what that might look like, as I mentioned, across these fields is also these different roles, things like data analyst, scientist, engineer, architect, a machine learning engineer, or an AI or automation role, all of these different career paths. Specifically talking about machine learning, that's another area of growth. It's a substantial field in artificial intelligence, which is broadly defined as the capability of a machine to imitate intelligent human behavior. AI systems are used to perform complex tasks in ways that is similar to how humans solve problems. And that is a $12.9 billion market, at least valued in 2022. And that's expected to grow to $225 billion by 2023. So obviously there will be many roles that will be paying very well in the field of machine learning. I mean, we may have all heard of ChatGPT and the huge impact it's having in the way that it's kind of impacted our lives. And industry insights and future careers, we kind of see this overlay between data science and machine learning, and these roles that are going to kind of come in between. I think it's going to be an important part of work that is going to change the face of future careers in technology. So thinking about all of that and the areas to grow, right? So many folks are interested and want to pursue these types of high paying roles and these exciting careers. We're going to talk a little bit about how you might align yourself to thinking of that end goal. And I think part of the reason why it's so important is when it comes to these really selective colleges and universities, they want to understand from your 13-page application who you are, what you've accomplished, and who you will be, right? I would be thinking, is this someone who we want to admit because they are going to be an incredible alumni and we want them to say that they went to a school like MIT? And so part of that is painting the image of the exact type of career or subfield or area that you might be interested in the future. So we'll talk a little bit about kind of how you might strategize getting into one of those undergraduate programs. So if you're thinking computer science, I think course selection is going to be really important. It's important to develop an intellectual curiosity for and to cultivate knowledge in math and science in general. I think you want to take the most challenging courses in computer science, if that's the field you're aligning yourself with. Even possibly more important is your calculus and physics sequence, because those courses do tend to be a little bit more predictive from the lens of admissions officers. So you want to show them, I really like computer science, I'm really good at it. And you want to show them that you're really good at math, physics, those other fields that are going to impact your work in computer science. And particularly, that's why we listed some higher level math courses like discrete math, linear algebra, multivariable, statistics. These can all kind of really align themselves with the field of computer science as well. You also want to take courses in other areas that are pretty demanding as well, right? Because you want to make those connections. We just talked about all of the ways that data science can be applied across fields. You want to show them, here's this technical skill that I have, and here's the knowledge of how it's going to actually impact human society and those people around me, right? And so for your, being a computer science data scientist who has really great communication or writing skills, it is really helpful, right? If you study psychology or economics, you can go into UI design, game theory. If you are really good at languages, digital humanities, natural language processing, right? If anyone's ever used an app like Duolingo, right? A beautiful example of how data science and machine learning and language can come together, or things like video game design if you're into the arts and music. Doesn't mean you have to take challenging courses in all of those areas, but I think having a few points where you really do excel does make you stand out a little bit more in these competitive pools. If you're more interested in the math or applied math sides of things, definitely want to take those courses in AP Calculus and Statistics. ARML, or the American Regions Math League, TrigStar, college prep math courses, these types of exams are standardized measures to really show a high level of expertise within math, which a lot of students are doing who are applying for these programs. College summer programs, specifically ones that center in math, and we help our students at Ingenious really navigate and find the best fit programs for them. School clubs that are related to math club, statistics club, right? If you're applying to one of these really competitive schools, you want to stand out in your pile. You're applying for math and your school has a math club and you're not a part of it, the admissions officer is going to say, what's going on? If you love math so much, why are you not a part of this club? So you kind of want to check off those boxes for what your school offers. And some important skills for math would be like mathematical skills as foundation, analytical skills, and research skills. And so finding opportunities to kind of hit all of those places, particularly research in math, it's a little bit harder to get in most typical high school curriculum. So finding any outside opportunities for those are super helpful. Cool. So how do you select your courses, kind of given all that I just shared? One, you want to review your school's profile, see what is offered. Two, review the descriptions of those courses, right? The way those courses are described is how your school will describe them to college admissions officers when they contextualize your transcript. So making sure that you really are able to see what is listed as the most challenging course, right? What is listed as the sequence in your school. You want to make notes of your requirements and guidelines and make sure that your plan includes a way to check off all the things that you have to take. And then with the extra space, you want to pick courses according to your interest and ability. You want to take challenging courses in the area that you are most interested in, challenge yourself, and then map out your courses for all of high school so that you're able to really have a plan to get to the highest level course, right? Maybe you decide, oh, this year I'm not going to take pre-calculus because I want to take this other class that's really cool. And then you find out that if you don't take pre-calculus this year, you're not going to be able to take that really hard math class by the time you're a senior. And so making sure that you're able to come up with a plan that satisfies all your requirements and shows your skill and ability in the area that you're most excited for. So what that might look like altogether, here's an example. Student on a math track, right? The top student would be taking pre-calc in grade 9, AP Calculus BC in grade 10, multivariable calculus in grade 11, and then linear algebra or a college level course in grade 12, right? And as we go down from there, you just kind of see the sequence and order in which those things would stand out. So just thinking about where you're at right now and how can you kind of advance yourself in your math curriculum if you're interested in math or computer science, as soon as possible. This is an example of a student who applied to Harvard and was admitted in our program. And you can kind of see in grade 9, that student was taking AP Stats and got an A. By grade 10 was taking AP Calculus BC with Calc AB in grade 9. You can kind of see how this is all laid out in the math sequence they were able to take. Students that I've had on my caseload that have been admitted to Harvard have had similar curricula and sometimes not, right? Depending on what their school offers as well, right? No one in your school has ever gotten that far. Your school just started offering something. I've seen those students admitted. I think when I worked at MIT and you have a really broad pool and some students in, again, that regional pile do have this kind of curriculum. Obviously, it's a little bit easier to have more faith in their academic ability if they've been doing this well in college level math courses since as early as they have been. So talk a little bit about grades and courses. Take the hardest classes in the areas that you like the most. Nice summary there. Let's talk a little bit about extracurriculars. So for computer science, you want to develop your technical skills, and that can look like a couple of things. Developing skills in at least one programming language, you're able to put that on a college application. And generally, it is good to learn one language really deeply rather than dabbling in many languages. So some common ones for general purposes, Python, C++, Java, right? These can be really standard, believable, evidenceable, types of languages to learn. For mobile app development, Kotlin for Android or Swift for iOS. And for data science, Python or R or MATLAB if you want to be a math major. You want to take online courses to develop those skills and things like Code Academy, Coursera, MIT OpenCourseWare, edX, many of which are free online resources. And you want to learn about basic data structures and algorithms that will help you understand whether or not you like computer science as an academic pursuit, right? It's totally okay if at the end of that journey, you're like, I like coding and making apps for fun at home, and that's a hobby that I love to have, but I might not want to study computer science as an academic field of study, which is going to be a little bit different as an undergraduate student. So discovering that for yourself along this journey, I think is going to be really helpful. And you definitely want to utilize your summers as wisely as possible, again, to stand out in these hyper-competitive pools. So maybe you take a summer course in computer science, and there's a few places where you'd be able to do so, a summer program, anything like that. And then for clubs, maybe found a club or an organization at your school or in your community, which could involve recruiting a teacher sponsor to help you, and thinking beyond programming, right? Like game design, algorithms, data structures, machine learning club, the role of technology in society, like creating a club that has a more unique topic than what we might see over and over again for most general computer science clubs at high schools. And then as Genius, we recommend that you learn Git and how to use GitHub, because you will typically use it all the time in a computer science program. And you can put your work on GitHub and develop the facility within Linux and command line. And then you might want to think about some other things like apps and competitions, whether that's contributing to open source software or creating a mobile or web app, participating in some math competitions like USICO in the US, or the equivalent Canadian math circuits are some of the most well-known ones. The Kaggle competition is a data science one that can be really great. And bonus points is develop collaboration skills by working with others to prepare for these competitions. You can talk about your ability to work on a team. And then you can compete in school and regional hackathons, or host your own. And that can, again, show that you're working with others, that you're in these really competitive environments, and that you kind of understand some of the pressures of a computer science program. And then what's really great about computer science as well is that there are different projects and soft skills you can develop related to the field. So you can create a research project under the guidance of a professor. At an Ingenious, we have an academic mentorship program that's ideal for this. You can contribute to a project as an intern on a software engineering, data science, or IT team to help you understand if computer science is actually the career that you want to follow. And then if you do an internship, we have a note of making sure it's substantive. Sometimes you get an internship and it's like you're getting coffee for people at a tech company, or you're doing admin work, right? And that's okay, that's nice. But we want you to have an internship where you can say, here's what I gained from this, right? Here's the skill set. Here's what I contributed to the project. Here's the new skill or thing that I learned. I'm making sure that it's a substantive internship, because what matters less than your title or role as intern is what you write that you accomplished on your activities list, right? And so being able to say, like, I helped launch this app that 50,000 people downloaded. I wrote the code for this thing. Like, that is going to be more substantive. And then develop your soft skills. I think a lot of times, there is this assumption at places like MIT that we only wanted students who were going to be alone in their rooms all the time coding. And we actually really wanted students that were going to work well with others, right? We knew that for some projects, you would be in a class with someone who had really great physics skills, but not the best bio skills, and the bio person would help them, right? And when you work on projects with others, you need that really creative design person, because something that they used to talk about in the mechanical engineering program when they would create products for sale is like, we have a lot of students that are really good at creating really great things, but not a lot of students who make it pretty or desirable or attractive to a consumer. And that is a whole part of mechanical engineering in that field, right, is like product design and innovation. And so you need that artistic person. You need that person with that really strong software skill set. You need that person with that really strong hardware skill set. So being able to work on a team with others is actually a really important skill. And sometimes computer science applicants can get pinholed into work that doesn't allow them to be super social. And so anywhere where you can pull out that teamwork and collaboration, I think is really important, whether that's, again, extracurriculars at school, research projects, internships, etc. And then here's just a list of competitions, again, that could be really important. The Olympiad circuit, the AMC or American math competitions, some summer programs that I mentioned earlier could be really helpful, or things like Promise, the Ross program at Ohio State, Stanford Math Camp, doing initiatives like an independent analytical or research project, or getting a publication in a high school audience or targeted journal, or even a school magazine. And there's an example there if you want to check that out. Cool. So I think I'm still doing okay on time. I'm gonna try to just cover a few more points. And then if you do have questions for anything that I've mentioned, feel free to drop them in the chat and we'll have some time to answer a few. You really want to think about this pyramid idea, right? Where in grade 9, in Genius, we call this interest exploration. Try a bunch of different things, right? What we recommend is like between 5 and 10 different things to see what really stands out. Notice how your grades are going. In grade 10, we start to narrow in and focus on one activity you really care about, but keeping around 3 to 5 to see what that may look like. In grade 11, that's leadership and impact. So work towards becoming a leader, making an impact in your extracurricular activities. And then by grade 12, it's becoming an established expert within your field. When I think of an example, I had a student on my caseload at Ingenious who lived in Canada, and in grade 9, you know, he was all over. He was really interested in skiing. He was, or figure skating. He was really interested in business, perhaps. He was interested in a bunch of different things. By grade 10, we started narrowing in. He was doing really well with figure skating, possibly had a chance of getting some national titles. Cool. We've spent a lot of time and prioritized that. For business, he was still figuring it out. So he got a part-time job. He did a school leadership role. By grade 11, he had gotten, he was on his school district's leadership board, right? So it really found like educational advocacy as a really nice niche interest area, right? And then continued his high level of figure skating, getting a national award. And by grade 12, he was on his a province-wide or a statewide school council board for his area, right? And so you see at grade 9, what started as like, I'll get a part-time job at Canadian Tire, I'll start figure skating, I'll do this thing, right? You get to see what you like and what sticks. And then by the time you get to grade 12, we want to see you going really deep into a couple of things that are really going to make you stand out in the pool, because that expert level of achievement is really what helps you stand out in these competitive pools. So here's how to, you know, I talked through one example, right? Here's another example from joining the math club in grade 9. You see that the student went up to the president of the math and robotics team, from taking coding classes and reading science books to placing in rigorous STEM competitions like ISAF, expanding the impact of a nonprofit from just interviewing someone in tech. You can kind of see where we want you to go with this. So real briefly, I'm just going to go over some last do's and don'ts of what you want to consider applying as a STEM applicant. So you want to show, where possible, combined interest in the humanities and STEM. Again, STEM is your technical skill. The humanities is why you want to impact people. How are you going to impact people? What is the issue that you want to create impact on? And then use those technical skills to kind of think about that challenge. You want to take advantage of your supplemental essays and elaborate on why you've chosen the particular school to study your favorite STEM subject. So you want to get really specific here, right? You don't want to apply to MIT because it's a really great STEM school with a lot of cool labs in the middle of Boston, because that's dozens of schools, right? You want to write MIT has this professor who's doing this area of research in this lab in this specific subfield that's really piquing my interest. And you want to prioritize unique extracurriculars and honors, things that will stand out, things that are really exceptional. And again, the areas where you've kind of gotten that expert level of achievement. You want to do things like science fair, high-level competitions, leaderships in school clubs, competitive summer programs, research and hands-on internships, all things that we discussed today. And that could look like launching a chemistry and cooking YouTube channel, designing an app for locating clean drinking water, creating a community garden and studying its ecology, calculating the math patterns of square dancing. Like there's so many areas that you can go here, but getting really deep and combining those interests, I think is really unique. And again, when you think about combining with the humanities, these are a lot of other examples that we've talked about of ways that those two things can come together. So lastly, the don'ts. You want to avoid repetition. So if you write about an activity in your personal statement, don't just repeat it in your activities list, give new information. Don't just highlight your common activities. Again, if you do robotics team, that's great. Most computer science applicants do robotics team. So where can you make that stand out? Where do you have leadership? Where do you have higher level impact? Where have you done something unique with your robotics team that not every student does? And don't only apply to reach schools. As a STEM applicant, you may have your eyes on places like MIT or Caltech, but you don't want to only apply there because you need target and safety options as well. It's single-digit admissions. It's getting even more selective each and every year. I would not put all of my eggs in one basket and only apply to those schools. So while a typical STEM applicant looks like someone with perfect test scores, participates in the math Olympiad, does first robotics, and is a piano level 8, this type of student is not going to catch the eye of an admissions officer because they are so common. Things that don't stand out are things like robotics, coding club, again, AMC or Olympiad, just participating in them and not